Good morning. Would the Committee on Zoning please come to order? I would like to welcome committee members Cordero, Dos Santos Dam, Kia Aina, and Wire. Although remote oral testimony is being permitted, this is a regular in-person meeting and not a remote meeting by interactive conference technology under HRS Section 92-3.7. Therefore, the meeting will continue notwithstanding loss of audio-visual communication with remote testifiers or loss of the public broadcast of the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways. First, remotely, and in person in the council chamber. Oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up in the following order: remote testimony and in-person testimony in the council chamber. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and the agenda item they are testifying on, and each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation per item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. The following are some friendly reminders and tips. Video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your device at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. And when your number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed on to the in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. Let's move on, members, to number 1, Resolution 24-142. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to the Pima and Rosalind Hagen Trust to allow for the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and carport, the construction of a new walkways and new sprinkler system, and the replacement of an individual wastewater system on approximately 5,419 square foot shoreline, lot zone R5 residential district, located at 59-4 Olava Place in Palmalo, and identified as tax map key 5-9-001:089. Members, we have posted to the agenda as a proposed committee draft 1 of the version of the resolution, OCS 24-0570, and for your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Joining us in the council chamber now is Mr. Jim Hayes from Planning Solutions, the applicant's agent, who will be providing a brief presentation for your information. The presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 282 of 2024. Oh, okay. Alex, come on up. Thank you.
Good morning, committee chair and council members. The agent for the applicant doesn't appear to be in the room at the moment.
Okay, that's okay. Please proceed as far as the position of the department.
Okay, DPP supports the CD1 and supports passage of the resolution.
Okay. Oh, there's Mr. Hayes. Nope, not. Alex, would you like to share with the general public just your specific thoughts of the resolution that is before us in regards to this application or project?
I would be happy to, but I think my colleague, Christy Keller, might be able to provide a little bit more information.
Okay. Who's that? I don't know who that person is. Yeah.
Good morning, committee members. Christy Keller with DPP. So this project is a relatively small 2-story dwelling that's replacing a 1-story dwelling on Halava Place in Pupukea, Palmalu, and it's a shoreline lot. It's it's one of the many lots along Sunset Beach. It recently went through an easement arrangement with the state land division for an area above seawall or retaining wall that's on the Sunset Beach property and another retaining wall that referenced this property. They were able to resolve that problem. They did get their certified shoreline survey. Everything that they're proposing seems to be in compliance with the LUO. The only concerns we got on this project were direct neighbors concerned about, privacy from the second view windows.
Okay, members, any questions for Ms. Kelly? Is that correct?
Keller.
Keller, Ms. Keller, nice to meet you. Councilmember Wire, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll just quickly, because looking over the report, just wanted to confirm, is it your understanding that the North Shore Neighborhood Board declined a presentation on this particular project?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I know on March 30th, 2024, presentation was presented to the Sunset Beach Community Association, and they also didn't have any additional concerns or comments besides maybe the neighbor concerns you mentioned.
That is my understanding from the applicant's submittal and discussions.
Okay, mahalo. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion for the members of the committee? If not, Ms. Keller, thank you very much for being here, and it's a privilege to meet you for the first time. Aloha. Okay, is Mr. Hayes here for the developer? If not, let's proceed on. We'll now proceed with remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, Madam Clerk, is there anyone else standing by remotely to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. At this time, members, let's proceed on to in-person testimony. We'll now proceed with in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Mr. Monaco?
Okay, Mr. Monaco, right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. James K. Monaco Sr., concerned parent, grandparent, Greek grandparent. As you know, Mr. Chair, this is such a small property. Back in the old days, before we had to make be concerned about our EV kupunas, we never did any inspections of the land. So I would like to see some of that being done today. As you know, SHPTA should be involved in this. And, anyway, we need to have them become involved in this. And I would really appreciate it if we have them become involved in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Matt, do we have any questions for Mr. Monaco, members of the council? If not, Mr. Monaco, thank you very much for your manao. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else in person?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Members, we are now in discussion. No, that's it. No. Okay, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay, talking to the chief, yeah. Shall we wait for the applicant? Yeah. So we'll defer this to the end of the calendar. Okay. Okay, to the end of the calendar, we'll defer this until Mr. Hayes shows up or the applicant. Let's move on to agenda number 2, Resolution 24-152. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Tessa LC Pang to allow for the construction of a new single-family detached dwelling and accessory dwelling unit with an attached 2-car garage, driveway, and in-ground swimming pool with spa, and the installation of a new individual wastewater system, irrigation system, and landscaping on approximately 9,889 square foot shoreline lot, zoned R-7.5, which is a residential district, located at 68-223 Crozier Loop in Wailua, and identified as tax map key 6-8-005:055. Members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed committee draft 1 version of the resolution, which was OCS 2024-0631. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Joining us in the council chamber, I believe he's not here, is, Mr. Jim Hayes from the Planning Solutions, the applicant's agent who will be providing a brief presentation for your information. The presentation is available online as miscellaneous communication 283 of 2024. Members of the zoning committee, with your indulgence and approval, would you like to have Mr. Hayes go and testify in support of his first application that we just postponed? Yeah, on agenda number 1. Okay, with the concurrence of the zoning committee members, you are very lucky to have, what? Oh. So he's going to be making his presentation on the resolution 24-142.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Hayes, you're very fortunate. Mr. Alex Beatty did a terrific job, and Ms. Keller did a terrific job in the presentation of your particular project. But please proceed.
Yes, thank you. Sorry I was delayed. This project is a single-family residence, and it is replacing an existing residence at the Sunset Beach or Sunset Point neighborhood. It's a relatively small lot, just over 5,000 square feet, zoned R5, on the end of a dead-end street. And of course, it is a shoreline lot. This is a recent photograph, aerial photograph of the site illustrating the existing residence that's roughly 1,200 square feet. And the existing residence is actually closer to the shoreline than the proposed residence. And this shows the proposed plan with a number of the shoreline hazards identified, including the sclerexa in the gray shading, and then the various erosion hazard lines in the yellow, orange, and red. Now, because the lot is relatively shallow and small, it is not possible to locate the residence behind the sclerexa or behind the erosion hazard lines. However, the site is fronted, or well, actually behind it on the coast side, there's a shoreline wall and a substantial sandy beach. And the owner of the residence has worked diligently with the Department of Land and Natural Resources to obtain a non-exclusive easement over the wall area that is seaward of the private property, and has also worked closely with the Department of Parks and Recreation to ensure that the shoreline area is free for the public use, and limited the vegetation there, and will be sure to not irrigate that area or encourage vegetation to grow in that beach area. So the proposed residence is a 2-level residence, so it'll be a little taller than the existing residence and larger at nearly 3,000 square feet, but certainly in character with the surrounding residential neighborhood. No variances or exceptions are being sought. Excuse me. This is a section view showing the residence as proposed, set back 40 feet from the shoreline, which is the wall along the beach. And it also illustrates some of the foundation elements that would be installed to protect the residents in the event that like the wall fails and erosion occurs. Those deeper foundations would prevent the residents from becoming a hazard in the beach area. And just a quick review of the proposal's compliance with the land use ordinance. It's a relatively small building. The lot size is ample, so it easily complies with all of the land use ordinance standards. And that is the end of my presentation for this project. And thank you again for allowing us to show this a little bit late, sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayes. Members, any questions? No questions? Okay, Councilmember Cordero, please.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Hayes. Thank you for your presentation and for being here today. I just have a question relating to the non-exclusive easement with DLNR. If you could explain what that entails, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a relatively involved process that we work on fairly often in situations like this, where a previous owner did some activity shoreward of the private property. And in this case, some owner probably back in the 50s built a wall and filled in an area. We see that all around the island, and we submit information to the Department of Land and Natural Resources because it's an encroachment into the state property. And then the DLNR considers the encroachment and evaluates whether it's appropriate or allowable for the encroachment to remain. And eventually, if they decide it is acceptable, they issue a non-exclusive easement. And usually the term of that easement is 25 years. So 25 years time from now, the Board of Land and Natural Resources will reevaluate the situation and decide whether they should continue the easement or require it to be removed.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And for, I guess, the plan map that we're looking at, is it on the shoreline or is it maybe on either side of the property? Sorry, I'm looking at that one.
Yeah, so the encroachment is on the shore side, so sort of on the upper left side. You can see the rock wall, and then there's a gap in the wall where there's stairs. And so from the face of the rock wall to the property is the easement area.
Okay, and then the maintenance of the easement then would be taken care by who?
Yeah, the term of the easement requires that the landowner maintain the wall and the landscaping, but cannot install anything new in that area, and must allow people to access that area if they so desire.
So public or just DLNR?
Technically, the public can go there. There's no gate. There's not a no trespassing sign or anything like that that would prevent people from going into that area. It's only once you enter the private property that they can restrict access.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Hayes? If not, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the presentation that was given by CZM at the state level. At this point in time, we are in discussion. If there is no discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 24-142 be amended to the Committee Draft 1 posted on the agenda identified as OCS 2024-0570. And on behalf of Mr. Monaco, there is a provisions in this resolution for SHPD doing all these different types of works and having the AIS, etc. So we did incorporate your concerns. So any discussions, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to the Committee Draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-142, Committee Draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, any objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, let's move on to agenda number 2, Resolution 24-152. Once more, I'll repeat it. This resolution grants a special management area major permit to Tessa LC Pang to allow for the construction of a new single-family detached dwelling and accessory dwelling unit with an attached 2-car garage, driveway, and an in-ground swimming pool with spa, and the installation of a new individual wastewater system, irrigation system, and landscaping on an approximately 9,889 square foot shoreline lot zone R7.5, which is in the residential district, located at 68-223 Crozier Loop in Waialua, and identified as tax map key 6-8-005:055. And at this time, members, we have posted once more to the agenda a proposed Committee Draft 1 version of the resolution for your information. And a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Joining us once more in the council chamber is Mr. Jim Hayes from Planning Solutions, the applicant's agent who will be providing a brief presentation on your, and for your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 283 of 2024. Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. This project is in the Waialua area in Crozier Loop. It is essentially the first residence that's west of the apartment area and residential area that's a little different than Crozier Loop. It's been undeveloped for a long time and is R7.5, and as you mentioned, a almost 10,000 square foot lot. This shows an aerial view of the lot surrounded by single family residents on the shoreline area. And recently, not shown in this photograph, there was a house built just to the west. So that's a recent development in the area. This drawing illustrates the proposed development and includes the 3.2 foot erosion hazard line, the red line, and illustrates the pool location and the dwelling location relative to that line. I wanted to point out, and we discussed this at length with staff of Councilmember Wire. Since the application was submitted to the Department of Planning and Permitting, the University of Hawaii actually reevaluated or republished their erosion hazard information. And we've put the updated information on this drawing. And as it illustrates, there is just a corner on the upper part of this drawing of the residence, a deck area that goes over the line. So the residence will be slightly redesigned so that that area is not over the red line. And this is a condition, I believe it's condition C1A of the SMA permit, the resolution as currently drafted. And I just wanted to point out that in the council draft, there had been a statement that the redesign would require the residents to be, I believe, more than 60 feet from the shoreline. But because the university has redrawn these lines and updated their hazard analysis, the red line is no longer 60 feet from the shoreline. I think it's roughly 50 feet or 55 feet from the shoreline. And the applicant has already submitted their building permit application for this development so that they can proceed as it is designed here with the slight modification to remove the deck area from the hazard area. This is a conceptual elevation view of the residence, showing the shoreline is to the right and the street is to the left. The second level, ADU level, is sort of in the street side of the residential development. And then just a quick review of the development's compliance with the land use ordinance standards. And again, it is easily in compliance and no variances or exceptions are being requested. So thank you for the opportunity to present the project and available for any questions.
Okay, members, any questions for Mr. Hayes? Councilmember Wire? Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a couple questions. Mahalo for the presentation. Just wanted to confirm, so I know that there's an offer September 13th, 2023 to present to the North Shore Neighborhood Board. I believe they declined the presentation. Is that your understanding?
That's correct. Yeah, we communicated several times with the chair of the board, and they coordinated with their members and decided that a presentation wasn't desired.
Okay, appreciate that. And then in regards to the recertification at the shoreline, do you know who does that in terms of agency or entity?
To recertify it, or?
Yeah, or to to update the shoreline as you're discussing, or the setback, I should say?
Yeah, so the University of Hawaii originally developed their erosion hazard assessment, and then roughly a year or so later, they reevaluated it. They added new data and updated the hazard lines. And so it's a University of Hawaii independent assessment, and then they produce the erosion rate values and draw these various lines. And then we translate those lines from their maps to our plans.
Okay, no, appreciate that. And thank you for the correction too in terms of the hazard assessment. And just noting, so it was the state versus DPP that actually made that adjustment.
Correct.
I just wanted to ask a couple more questions during construction. Do you know where parking is going to be for folks? Is it going to be on the property or in the community, or it's just a question that had come up?
Yeah. So looking at this aerial view, the residents, the lot that we're talking about is on the shoreline, and then there's another lot between this one and the roadway, and there's an easement across that roadway parcel that leads to this subject parcel, and that roadway parcel is undeveloped, and parking and staging will occur on that parcel, which is, I believe, roughly 7,000 square feet.
Okay, appreciate that. And you're saying roadway, it's the private parcel, Malka, of the developed parcel, not on any portion of the public road fronting the property?
Correct, yeah. So between Crozier Loop and the orange box, there's another parcel that's undeveloped, and that will be used for staging and parking, so that there should be no parking or inconvenience to the residents of Crozier Loop.
Okay, well, I'll appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Kiaina.
Aloha. Good to see you again. Thank you for working with SHPD, and just because of the vicinity, I know you're already aware of archaeological surveys identifying several historic sites at Iwi Kupuna along Mokalea Beach Park, which is in the vicinity of the project site. And so my question is, and I know that they made recommendations to you and you guys are following it, relating to the pool, I have to ask the question, if Iwi Kupuna are discovered during excavation for the swimming pool, is your team prepared to look at alternatives to allow for burial in place, including moving the pool to a different location?
Yeah, we're willing to consider that, and there is an AIS being planned to conduct in advance of any construction.
Okay, thank you so much. I know it's a difficult decision, but that's something that the Hawaiian community and many lineal descendants recommend, and you could either move it or consider alternative ways to have a pool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion for the applicant? If not, let's proceed on. Members, at this point in time, Mr. Alex Beatty, Urban Design Branch Chief, DPP. Alex,
Hi, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Council Chair, and members of the committee. I just wanted to take a brief moment to introduce myself. I'm here on behalf of Director Opuna as DPP's new second Deputy Director. So I wanted to just introduce myself to the committee, and I look forward to working with all of you. So I'll bring Alex Beatty up.
You forgot to...
Regina Malepeai.
I beg your pardon?
My name is Regina Malepeai, DPP's
Okay.
second Deputy
Got it.
Director. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Oh, here you go, Mr. Beatty.
Good morning again, Chair and committee members. Alex Beatty with DPP. We're in support of the CD1, but also I have Staff Planner Jordan Dildy here to answer any specific questions you have.
Okay. Members, any questions for the department at this point in time? Alex? If not, any questions for the first Deputy Director? No, I'm only kidding. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will now proceed with the remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, and then Madam Clerk, is there anyone else standing by remotely to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's move on to in-person testimony. We'll now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Is there anyone else in the council chamber who would like to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Members, we are now in discussion. If there's no discussion, the chair would like to recommend that Resolution 24-152 be amended to the Committee Draft 1 posted on the agenda, identified at OCS 2024 of 0631. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a Committee Draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-142, Committee Draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Staff has reminded me that I have to correct my statement I made earlier that the chair recommends that Resolution 24-152 be amended to the Committee Draft 1 posted on the agenda, identified as OCS 2024 of /0631. Once more, is there any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a Committee Draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-152, Committee Draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Let's move on to agenda number 3. Chulok. This one. Okay. Let's move on to agenda number 3, Resolution 24-166. This resolution authorizes exemptions from certain requirements pursuant to the Hawaii Revised Chapter 21H-38 relating to a proposal by the Maikos Development to develop the Waikahe Residence Affordable Rental Housing Project on approximately 37,000 square foot of land zone AMX 2, which is medium density apartment mixed use district within the Waipahu Transit Oriented Development Special District, located at 94-069 Waipahu Street in Waipahu and identified as tax map key 9-4-047:025. Members, on December 6 of 2023, by adoption of Resolution 23-281, Committee Draft 1, the Council authorized exemptions from certain requirements for the Waipahu Street Affordable Rental Housing Project at the same location. Due to changes in the availability of project funding, the applicant is proposing to reduce the scope of the project approved in 2023, which would be considered as a major modification that requires council approval. So this resolution will supersede Resolution 23-281, Committee Draft 1 in its entirety. So members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed Committee Draft 1 version of the resolution of OCS 2024-0636. And for your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Also, members, at this point in time, I am proposing 2 verbal amendments. The first is to amend the fourth whereas clause of the resolution to replace the phrase "the applicant is proposing significant revisions to the 2023 project" with "the applicant is proposing to reduce the scope of the 2023 project." Okay, so what I'm saying here is that we're proposing that the revisions of the 2023 project with the applicant now is proposing to say that we are reducing the scope of the 2023 project. This amendment would better describe how the project is being modified. The second is a technical amendment to Deferral 11, relating to a deferral of the payment of the Board of Water Supply charges and fees, and to add the word "charges" after "water system facility" so as it reads "water system facility charges and the installation of water service fees." This request as an amendment was requested by the Board of Water Supply. Joining us in the council chamber, we have Mr. Isaiah Santo from RM Towel Corporation, the applicant's agent to give a brief description of the project. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 281 of 2024. At this point in time, Mr. Isaiah Sato.
Thank you, Zoning Chair Say and members of the Zoning Committee, as well as
It's good to
Council
see
Chair
you
Wai.
this morning.
It's good to see you.
You did a great job at the Ala Moana Kaka'ako Neighborhood Board presentation on another project.
Thank you. Last
welcome.
night and then back this morning. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. So I'm here today. Again, my name is Isaiah Sato, and I work with RM Tao Corporation. We're the planner for Waikahe Residences, and we're representing the developer. And Sharon Har is here in the audience as well to help with questions. But thank you for having us here today to talk about Waikahe Residences. As Council Zoning Chair Say mentioned, this was previously known as Waipahu Street Affordable Housing Development. So that was our original 201H name that was approved via Resolution 23-281. As Council Zoning Chair mentioned, we are requesting to supersede that resolution with the current Resolution 24-166. Our project size was reduced in scope. We shrunk the building and we reduced the unit counts as well. This slide shows the vicinity map of the project. So our project is located at 94-069 Waipahu Street. It's about a half mile or less than a half mile from the whole Aiai Westlock Skyline station there. And it's near retail, grocery stores, as well as transportation. This slide shows our project site, which is just under 37,000 square feet, excuse me. And the zoning is AMX2, apartment mixed use, and we're within the Waipahu Transit-Oriented Development District. This slide highlights our project affordability. We have 161 total units, 1 manager's unit, and 160 affordable rental units there. The unit mix is from 1 bed to 3 bed. We have 97 1 bedrooms, 49 2 bedrooms, and 15 3 bedrooms. One of those 3 bedrooms would be a manager's unit. Our affordability is 30 to 60% AMI and below for a term of 60 years. This slide touches upon some of the project information of the revised project. So our building height is at 105 feet or 9 stories. The FAR we're asking for is 4.3, 120 vehicle stalls with about 0.75 parking ratio there. And we're providing the required bicycle parking, 17 short-term and 81 long-term stalls. This slide really highlights the changes from our previous design in 23-281 to the current design, Waikahe Residences. So starting from the top, our unit count was at 196. We reduced it to 161. The rates actually went up to 80% AMI originally, but we brought that down to 60% AMI. The building floors came down from 15 to 9. The shape of the building changed a bit from kind of an L shape to a C shape there. The density came down from 5.5 FAR to 4.3 FAR, and our parking came down accordingly. Our parking and bicycle parking came down accordingly as well. And that's it for the presentation. And I want to thank you for working with us and the department for working with us on this major modification for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions for the applicant? Okay, Councilmember Cordero, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Mr. Sato. I was just wondering about the, in the first application, but this proposed application, there were going to be 23 residential units per floor and then certain bedrooms in the project. Is it the same? With the change?
So our building came down from 15 floors to 9 floors, but our unit mix actually came down from 196, excuse me, the unit count from 196 to 161. So our floor plan did change. Originally, it was kind of an L shape, if you can picture that, but now it's going to look like a C shape. So we did enlarge our building floor plan, so we have additional units per floor as well. So we wanted to be able to reduce the size and height of the building while still providing as much affordable units as possible.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? Councilmember Wire, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mahalo for the presentation. I just wanted to double check. I think there was a presentation at the Waipahu Neighborhood Board on May 25th, 2023, and then later on July 27th, 2023. It was my understanding that the board didn't take any action on the project. Is that your understanding as well?
So we presented to the board just at one meeting.
Just one,
So we
okay.
didn't go to the July meeting. It was at May, and prior to the neighborhood board, we held our own outreach meetings. We had a virtual meeting, as well as an in-person meeting down at the New Hope Waipahu nearby, and we sent out, about 1,000 mailers to nearby residences for that.
Okay. Mahalo, I appreciate that. And also just acknowledge that when you're looking at the Waipahu TOD plan, that I think the heights contemplated moved up and were higher towards the West Lock Station. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, that's correct. So the building height here was 60 feet, but that's what was changed with the TOD. We're asking for 105 feet, but you're correct. Within the TOD plan, it identifies this area closer to the station to have higher heights.
Okay. Mahalo. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any further questions for Mr. Sato? With the substantial reduction, can you still pencil it out financially? At the 30% to 60% AMI? Oh, that's tough.
Aloha, Chair. Sharon Har, by Michael's Development. Thank you for that question. So what had happened was, Chair, the property designation previously was in a qualified census tract, which I'm sure many of you elected officials are aware of. Unfortunately, HUD determines what those lines are every year, and we lost that designation. As a result, it affected our underwriting, and in a negative way. So that's why we had to reduce the scope of the program, but yet we tried to maximize density in terms of the number of units. So previously, we were at a much higher building height, and we had 197 units, where we significantly reduced the program scope because we had to reduce our construction costs, our hard costs, in order to make the project pencil. And so that's why we reduced it. But I also think that the neighborhood board will be extremely happy to see the reduction in the size of the program, yet we were still able to maximize density. I think that was the key by changing the floor plans and changing the building from an L shape to a C shape.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification.
And if I may, Chair?
Yes.
I just want to thank Alex Beatty, Jordan Dildy for assisting us, and of course your staff. Again, a major modification is not something easy to go through, but we are very appreciative for you and your staff working with us to get this through.
Is it a major modification or is it a reduction of the scope?
Well, that's actually, I know. Okay, Chair, actually, I'd like to clarify that. There really is no such thing as a major modification. I mean, we talk about it, but it's basically start all over again. And so, council members, just so you folks understand, via Resolution 23-281, you approved this big circle. What we're doing today is we're asking you to approve this small circle that was part of the already approved larger circle. And that's all that it is. And so, again, we're still trying to provide as many units as possible, affordable. And then one other thing, Chair, we actually did change the AMIs. It's only 30 to 60%. Previously, we were at 30 to 80%. And understanding the need of our community and our local residents, 80% AMI is very, very difficult for many people to qualify.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any questions for the applicant? If not, thank you very much. Let's proceed on to administrative officers. Ms. Kathy Mitchell of the Board of Water Supply.
Good morning, Chair Say,
Yes.
Chair Waters, and members of the committee. The Board of Water Supply supports the continuing development of affordable housing, and we submitted our written testimony, and thank you for acknowledging that in your opening remarks. Available for questions.
Okay, members, any questions for Ms. Kathy Mitchell? If not, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have Mr. Alex Beatty. Alex, please, go on up.
Hello again, committee chair and council members. DPP is in strong support of this resolution. This is a good project that provides a substantial amount of affordable housing. We supported it before when it had a larger program, and we continue to support it now.
Great, Okay, members, any questions? Chair Waters, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. I'm in strong support. And I just have a question, a procedural question on 201H projects. So obviously the entire project here is affordable. So the entire project is eligible for exemptions from city application fees, infrastructure, or public work fees, correct?
That is correct.
Is it true that in other projects where, say, 50% plus one are affordable and the remaining units are at market rate, only the affordable units are eligible for the exemptions?
That's a great question. The state law is not so specific. I believe that the city council has an adopted policy to only waive fees for those units that are affordable. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what that resolution is, but there is a stated policy of the council related to that.
Thank you. Does DPP have a position on whether or not that policy and/or this committee have opinion on whether or not that policy should be changed so that we can waive the fees for the entire project, which would help to build more units, in my opinion?
I am not aware of a DPP position on that policy.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious what your committee feels about that idea and whether or not that's something that we should consider. Perhaps for future discussion, but thank you.
Which is a blanket exemption for all.
The entire project, rather than just the units that are affordable.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Beatty? If not, thank you very much once more. At this time, we'll now proceed with the remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay. Oh, it's Miss Angela Young. Good morning.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong favor of the exemptions. And so as a community member, although I'm not from the district, I'm just a community member of the state. I'm concerned about the overall goals of the city and state because we live in communities that make up the entire state. And the state goal was to develop near transportation. And now that this HART skyline is in operation, and there is the clean energy goals at the state of not wanting to put out more cars in the roads for future development, they want to develop the transit corridors with affordable housing so that they can have walkability from the HART train to school and to work. So that was a state goal of future development, to be concentrated on the HART line instead of going into suburban or undeveloped lands. So I am in strong favor of this development.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Any questions for the testifier, Ms. Young? If there is no questions for Ms. Young, thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any further remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with the in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Great. If there's anyone else in the council chamber, Madam Clerk?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Okay, members, we are now in discussion. Any discussion? Yep, Councilmember Wire, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask to make sure I caught all of it, if Chair Waters could walk through what you were suggesting earlier for us to discuss or consider.
Oh, thank you. Basically, it appears that we have a policy that says that on 201H projects, only the affordable units are exempt from the fees, not the entire project, if there are market rate units that are involved. I'm just thinking in order to help support the developers build more affordables, that we exempt the entire project. which would save money and hopefully provide more affordables. But it's not applicable to today because it appears that in this project, the entire project's affordable, so they're eligible for the exemption for the entire project. But yeah, I just thought it'd be good to examine that, and perhaps even when the director of the housing department comes to testify later on today, and or in your committee, we could discuss that as well.
Okay, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep, you're very welcome. Thank you. Any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, the chair then recommends that Resolution 24-166 be amended to the committee draft 1 posted on the agenda identified as OCS 2024-0636 as further amended as we discussed to first, we amended the Fort Whereas clause of the resolution to replace the phrase the applicant is proposing significant revisions to the 2023 project with the new phrase with the applicant proposing to reduce the scope of the 2023 project. And two, amend the deferral 11 relating to the deferral of the payment of the Board of Water Supply charges and fees to add the word charges after water system facility. So as it reads, water system facility charges and the installation of water services fees. Members, any discussions, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the resolution has been amended to a committee draft 1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 24-166, committee draft 1, be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, best wishes to this particular project. Moving on to agenda number 4, Bill 3 of 2024, Committee Draft 1. This bill relates to the incentives for the construction of affordable rental housing. Members, we have posted to the agenda a proposed Committee Draft 2 version of the bill, which is OCS 2024-0613. For your information, a summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. Members, at this point in time, my Committee Draft 2 would provide that no more than 5% of the monies designated for post-construction grants in any fiscal year may be used for administrative purposes, primarily to implement the grant program. Number 2, we provide for 2 different grant amounts. For the affordable rental units that are less than 300 square foot in size, the grant amount is $15 per square foot of the floor area ratio, which is an increase from the existing $11.25 per square foot for affordable rental units, rented to comparable household income groups. I'd like to emphasize that this amendment does not reduce or diminish the grant amount for comparable household income groups currently available under Revised Ordinance of Honolulu, Chapter 32. For affordable rental units that are 300 square feet or more in size, the grant amount is $12,000 per unit. Members, for your information, units of 300 square foot or less are considered to be micro units under the city's affordable housing requirements in Revised Ordinance Honolulu Chapter 38. This increased grant amount is intended to incentivize the development of larger workforce housing for families. Bill 7 was not primarily intended to produce low-income housing or transitional housing for the homeless, as these types of housing typically require and receive other types of subsidies, such as low-income housing tax credits, or the approximately $22 million in funding from the Affordable Housing Fund that was appropriated in Ordinance 24-10 of fiscal year 25 Executive Capital Budget. Providing greater grant amounts for larger units targeted towards households earning more than 60% up to the 100% of the AMI would incentivize the development of these types of units versus the micro units targeted toward households earning 60% or below of the AMI. At the same time, This approach increases the grant amount currently available under revised ordinance of Honolulu, Chapter 32, and therefore does not discourage the development of smaller units if that is what pencil out financially for the owner. At this time, we have Mr. Alex Beatty of the Department of Planning and Permitting. Alex?
Thank you, Committee Chair and Council members. Alex Beatty with DPP. At this moment, I'd actually like to defer to the Office of Housing Executive Director on this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, let's call up Ms. Denise Iseri Matsubara, the Director of the Office of Housing.
Aloha and good morning. Zoning Committee Chair Say, members of the committee, Denise Iseri Matsubara, Office of Housing Executive Director. So the Office of Housing supports the proposed CD2, being that Ordinance 19.8 was intended to promote the development of rental housing for households exactly as what you said, below 100% AMI. It has the potential of being one of the successful strategies to help stem the outmigration of our workforce. We want to commend this zoning committee for their continuous efforts on Bill 3, as well as the creation of a new housing finance option being considered under Bill 31. Bill 3 would increase post-construction grant amounts for all units, regardless of unit size, thereby striking a balance between the different interests while working toward the same goal of increasing the housing supply. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the Director of the Office of Housing? Okay, Councilmember DeSanto Stan.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think in your opening remarks, you mentioned that this Bill 7 program was not intended for the lowest of the low income and that there's a variety of funding sources available. I know that the director of our Office of Housing here has pretty extensive experience on the state side and on the city side with the variety of programs that are available. And I was wondering if she could comment about how competitive those funds are. DERF, Rental Housing Revolving Fund, LIHTC, and whether these sorts of small apartments that are contemplated under Bill 7 really have a chance at getting any of that funding to begin with.
The LIHTC program, as I've stated before this council, is a very oversubscribed program. The current trend has been maybe 1/3 of the applications get funding, but that program is separate and apart, it appears, from this target market for this program. If I look back at Bill 7, it looks like it was targeting a different population, which is more the 80 to 100% AMI. And if I can recall correctly, Bill 7 actually allows 20% to be at market. So there is some cross-subsidization allowed under Bill 7 to have market rate help subsidize the lower income, more affordable. So it's a different program from LIHTC. LIHTC is very, very costly. It involves housing credits at the federal and state level. It involves syndicators, bond councils. So it's a very, very expensive program. Subsidies run in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think the programs are just very different, and they're aimed at different target markets.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair, and mahalo, Director. I'm just curious, because it sounds like from what I'm hearing that the target market for this particular program would not be households that would be suited or intended for smaller than 300 square foot unit. Is that an accurate understanding, or is that what I'm hearing?
So it's hard to say. If you look at the Bill 7 construct, it looks like it's targeting the 80 to 100% AMI. What actually materializes out of that largely depends on the project's that come about. They have to look at their costs, their construction methods. Some forms of construction are more appropriate than others for small lots. You go from wood frame, which is less costly, probably more appropriate for construction on small lots. And then once you get into medium to high density, because of the protection needed for wind and fire, then concrete form may be a more appropriate model. So it really is going to depend on what the developer chooses in terms of their methods to use to construct a project. That all has to factor in, and I would want to hear from the developers on what their experiences are in terms of building it. I know developers are trying to figure it out. Some, are making it and they're successful, but it's going to depend on the economics of what they can make it work within the confines of the program provided by the city.
Malo, I appreciate that. Because I think, and I, support, I think, all the discussion and the work that's gone into it. I think, my thought was just that if our goal wasn't to subsidize with this particular grant program units below 300, I think it would be maybe a step in the right direction to maybe just instead phase them out in the bill, not necessarily still provide a mechanism for funding. Given that maybe there's projects that have already relied on the program and entered into planning based on that reliance, but going forward from, maybe some future date, like we could just completely wipe out set 300 as the minimum. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of work that's gone into it, so appreciate Chair's work and your staff as well.
Thank you. Members, any further questions for Ms. Matsubara? Okay, Councilmember DeSanto Stan.
Thank you. I don't have a question for Denise, but I do have a question for DPP. If anyone maybe can shed some light on this, and I don't know if it's Alex or somebody else. Maybe Alex can give us his best crack at this answer. And if not, maybe we can get it in writing later. How many Bill 7 projects have been completed?
Unfortunately, I'm not prepared to answer that question, so I do not know. Chapter 32 projects do not come through my division. They are a straight to building permit situation, so we don't even see them, which is nice for them.
So maybe we can get some of these answers in writing. How many Bill 7 projects have been completed? How many permits have been issued? How many applications have been submitted? And for each of these, the distribution of unit sizes. Or some depiction, just something that would help us understand whether the 300 square foot limit is a major issue, whether this is something that only a few developers are doing, whether this is something that just the market is interested in because developers are doing it a lot, or maybe they're not interested in it at all because very few developers are doing it and it's simply a product of having a weirdly shaped lot, right? This information I think would help us.
Understood. Just so I can understand the question more clearly, the question that the council has is about kind of types of unit and unit size, and is the concern of the council that we're supposed to be reacting to that units too small? Units are too small?
I think that the proposed 300 square foot threshold is one that was selected for good reason, I think, right? We want to make sure that we don't just build tiny units for every single Bill 7 project. But I think having an understanding of what the program looks like in reality thus far would help us determine whether 300 square feet is a rational threshold based on actual conditions out in the real world, and based on, it would help us make a good policy call.
Understood. We can get back to you with that information.
Maybe the Director of Housing could respond to your question. Ms. Matsubara, could you respond to Vice Chair's questions in regards to the number of applicants in regards to the Bill 7 projects? How many is in the pipeline? You don't have that. Or my question would be, presently, what is in the pipeline in regards to Bill 7 projects? Would you have the listing of these projects? I believe there was some presentation where the department did give us the listing.
I think for an accurate listing, DPP would have the data on it. I can just tell you off the top of my head, there are 3 completed projects now for about 100 units. Pu'uhue Place was first one's completed and done. Ernest Street is up, completed. The third one is Bishop on Bishop Street. That was an adaptive reuse, but Bill 7, that's 52 units. It is complete. It's waiting for its certificate of occupancy. I think within, between this fiscal year and fiscal year 25, there will be a total of close to 200 units maybe. But the accurate listing of the total pipeline would rest with DPP.
Okay, and maybe Alex, would the department have the information in regards to what Ms. Matsubara has stated for the record, that those particular projects that have been completed, the number of units, what is the means or the average of the square footage per unit? That would be interesting that we're talking about because of the chair's decision about the 300 square foot.
Understood, and we will look into that. And I would like to offer an apology that I'm not more prepared to speak on these 2 items. I also will maybe offer a temper of expectation that finding the average of those units may involve quite a bit of work. It would mean pulling all of the plans and looking at every unit and doing that average. So we will do our best to respond to this, but just to, I'm anticipating the workload that will involve and giving you a heads up on that.
Okay, the other question for me is that I hope you were here in 2019 when the original legislation was adopted and the intent behind Bill 7. And the reason why I bring this up is that I hope we don't have projects that are strictly 300 square foot per unit. That we're not addressing the gap group also. You're addressing the 60% AMI and below. If that was the intent of Bill 7, I don't know. And that's the reason why I posed this question. It was before all of us, our time, that it was adopted. But more importantly, it's just the quality of life. What is a 300 square foot unit? Is it a studio?
Typically, it would be in a studio or efficiency kind of unit. And to provide some context, parking space and the maneuvering area behind it would be about this size.
So that's the reason why for the minimum we're looking at, 300 square foot, then you can go on up with the flexibility by units. But the whole intent, if I can, read the ordinance, was that it was supposed to address family homes in apartment zones, in the consolidation of these homes for multi-generational living, that's one, and also having renters help subsidize the project. I just don't want to get involved whereby this particular project becomes an incentive as part of the overall financials, meaning that without this money, we can't do the project. The banks will not allow us. And it is a major concern for me because then we are not in the business of just, giving out these grants at the post-construction side of it, recognizing that this is what I'm putting on the table to the banks. If there's 100 units at 15,000, that's 150 that they're going to be putting into their financial plans to the banks. So I bring this up because I'm trying to find that balance. And, some of these projects may take up a lot of our resources in regards to the funding that the council has appropriated also. So that's the reason why, we have this particular proposal before us. Okay. Yeah, my staff has just shared with me, which is true. build through does not affect what can be built. We just adjust the grant amounts, which increases all units, but further increases larger units. So that's what the proposal is today. And this is all post-construction. Okay, any further questions for the testifiers? If not, okay, let's proceed on to remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, we have one standing by.
Okay, that's, once more, Miss Angela Young.
Aloha, Council. In strong favor of this bill. So it is good to be aware of policies that benefit the interests of others. Funding for developers will increase housing supply, and developers will actually want to work with the city, and they will get excited working with the city. So I think overall, this is a good bill. And also for consideration, least restrictive funding parameters to qualify and to be eligible for a funding source is good. And when the policymakers are in control of the mechanisms to determine the funding parameters, as it is with this bill, then it is unlike other funding sources like LIHTC, because what's happening with this bill is that policymakers are in ultimate control to set provisions. The other funding sources are stakeholders that set the qualifications for eligibility of the funds. And the advantage of the city council to set the parameters is a very special perspective and responsibility, because the council has to hear through the zoning process all the different markets, audiences, and homeowners, and the disparities in home ownership that happens through the council hearings. So in strong support of the bill.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Any questions for Ms. Young? Okay, Council Chair Waters.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for your thoughtful testimony today. May I ask, are you working while commuting? And did you use your Holo card?
Oh, yeah. I've got my Holo card because I need it to ride the HART train.
All right.
And I'm technically not working because I don't get paid for what I do. I'm just very passionate about helping the community.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Okay, members, any discussion? Madam Clerk, is there any further remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we proceed with in-person testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any in-person testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have a few standing by.
Okay. Mr. Paul Lamb, please.
Good morning, Chair Say, Vice Chair DeSantos Tam, members of the Zoning Committee. My name is Paul Lamb. I'm a Bill 7 developer. As you see from the DPP study conducted in 2019, there are about 6,200 lots that are available that qualify for Bill 7 development. Out of those 6,200 lots, nearly 1/4, or 1,500 lots, are 5,000 square foot and under. On a 5,000 square foot lot, only a 3-story walk-up makes sense from an economic viability perspective. A 4-story with an elevator does not pencil. A 4-story without an elevator is not viable in the long term. We have moved 46 families, or in the process of moving 40. May I testify 3 and 31 together,
Please
Council?
proceed.
We have moved 46 families into units of 300 and under, or in the process of doing it. I can tell you they are happy and they're grateful. In the luxury market, there are 120 luxury condos Aliyah, Kula, that are under 300 square feet that have sold for $500,000 each. So my question is, why isn't an affordable program able to receive equal grant as a 300 square foot and up? The cost per square foot to produce a 300 square foot unit is higher, actually, per square foot. On a 5,000 square foot lot, it's just not physically possible to have all units 300 square foot. So I'm just asking, it feels like we're being punished for producing 2 out of the 3 projects that have finished so far that we have happy tenants in, grateful tenants. And we're, according to this bill, would receive 1/3 of the grant money that a 300 square foot unit would get. They would get $12,000, we would get $15 a square foot, is that right? That would amount to about 1/3. So I don't think there is equity in the amount of grants. So Governor Green contributed $5 million towards this fund. And according to this legislation in Bill 31, this CD, all units 300 square foot and under would not be eligible for a pre-construction grant because they'd be under 300 square foot. So all 3-story structures on 5,000 square foot would not be eligible if you pass this CD. That's my testimony. Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Lam, please? Okay, please, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And mahalo, Mr. Lam, for all the work that you're doing and housing folks and supporting our community. I'm curious, just because of the nature of the conversation we've been having, do you have any thought on what a minimum size should be, just in general? Or is there any guidance we should be looking to?
Well, the International Building Code is 124. Obviously, that's too small. But as for grant funds, I would recommend that you do it on, perhaps you could do it on a per square foot basis. For example, maybe $45 a square foot, up to $12,000 per unit, something like this. I think it's more equitable than if it's a 270 square foot unit, all of a sudden you're granted 1/3 of the grant funds, which is a huge difference. So that's one option. Also, one more clarification on the Bill 7. 100% of all units are restricted. Not 20% of the units cannot go market. 100% of the units must be in accordance with the AMI as well.
Thank you. And just last question, Chair. And just so I can better understand, in your experience, is it more than just preserving projects that are already in the works? And you'd be your position that in perpetuity there should be?
By the way, we have a number of projects going, and they are all different in sizes. Our next project, we hope to get Bill 31 passed so that we could get started on a 90-unit project on Pensacola. They're all 350 square foot, up to 700 square foot for 2-bedroom. So we're not just producing micro units, but for 5,000 square foot lots, which is 1/4 of all lots that are available for Bill 7 development, it is hard, it is impossible to have all units 300 square foot and up on a 3-story structure.
So am I hearing your preference, would your preference be to maybe distinguish between lot size if we're gonna look at unit size, or is that getting too much into the weeds? Or
I think we would be overregulated in my view.
Okay.
I think if you do it on per square foot, that's more equitable. For example, $45 a square foot or something like this. You know, so you know, a 275,000 would get about $9,000, not like 4,000 in a at this time.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to be equitable, you know, with the committee. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember DeSanto Stan.
Thank you, Chair. Sort of building upon my line of questioning to DPP, I think part of the issue is I understand that we don't want to incentivize every single unit to be tiny to squeeze as much grant out of the program. But I just heard from Mr. Lam here that in his previous projects, it's not as if every single unit is under 300 square feet. It's that there are conditions that require some of the units to be 290 something, right?
Right.
And I just want to, and that was sort of why I was asking DPP if we had a sense of all the other applications as well, what's actually happening in the real world so we can make a good policy call. But I guess the question for Mr. Lam is, in the projects that you've built, total number of units, how many have been under that 300 square foot and why?
So the our first project was on Ernest, 25 units. Kenau, we just completed. So first of all, Ernest was 26 units. Kenau is 25 units. We're going to break ground on July 1 on Algaroba. It's 25 units. They're all around 5,000 square foot lots, okay? Out of those properties, about 80% of those units are under 300 square foot. And it's because of the lot size of 5,000 square foot. It's not possible to go over 300 square foot. It's not that we're trying to shortchange the tenant or those that are in need. But almost all our projects that are, let's say, 8,000 square foot or 10,000 or 15,000, they're all pretty much over 300 square foot. Does that make sense?
Okay, members, any other questions for Mr. Lam? Okay, the chair has a couple of questions, Mr.
Yes.
Lam. A project is approved based upon not what you get from this particular measure, but if you can finance it. So which comes first? The project, and then you come up with your financing, or does the financing of that particular 5,000 square foot lot?
I'm so sorry, Chair, I don't understand your question.
My question is simply this. Which comes first? You want the grant program to have the flexibility of 300 square foot, or 300 square foot and above. This particular measure just gives you the square footage that you'll get a little more with the 300 square foot and below unit versus a larger unit over 300 square foot that has a fixed amount tied to the unit. My question would be, why can't we live within the means that we have here with this particular bill? What's wrong? Whatever you can finance is what you're gonna get. That's what I'm saying for this 5,000 square foot lot. The other question that I've been posing to myself for the council members of the zoning committee, Mr. Chair, is the fact that I don't like to see projects where it's all concrete. Why concrete? Why not two-story wooden apartment? It's much more cheaper.
Great question. Thank you, Chair. Obviously, concrete construction is more costly than wood frame construction. Derek Locke, my good friend, is developing with wood, and he's doing an amazing job, by the way, doing wonderful work. And most of his structures are using wood. I wish he was here to testify. He's going to be telling you that those costs are increasing dramatically as well. Okay, one. Second, we believe that over the long term, concrete construction is a better product for the tenant. It is a lot quieter, less use of energy, and it goes up much faster. We are putting up these buildings in about 8 to 9 months. Ernest went up in 9 months. Kina went up in 8 months. Algaroba will go up in 8 months. Wood is going to take you 2 years. We're in a desperate situation, Chair Say. We need to get these projects moving. The coronavirus and other issues have stalled Bill 7, and we're getting a really good jump start now with 3 that are about to break ground or finished, and many more in the pipeline. And we can complete these projects almost at half the speed, if not faster.
Okay. I'm not going to argue about it, but my point this morning is simply put. Doing the research, our predecessors have approved a lot of projects under the 201H, other projects that may be tied to the shoreline management ordinances that we have. But at the end of the day, it always boils down to financing. How do you finance it to make it affordable? That's why I thought the intent of Bill 7 was always having 2 families with 5,000 square foot lots, combining it to build an apartment that is 8 units, 10 units at the most, for first the families, and then the other 4 units of the 10 for renters. We have gotten away from that objective. It seems like, we are becoming more and more of a developer, but I'm just getting concerned about how we are financing county funds.
Great. Council member, Chair Say, sorry. As you know, Bill 7, we're financing it ourselves. It's all private. This grant money is the only help that we get from the government. If we're talking about $12,000 per unit versus a 201H program is getting about $177,000 per unit. This is the best return that the government can get in providing affordable housing. As far as financing, and so we have to put up all the money and sign on a note with the bank to guarantee the financing. So that's not taxing on the government. 201Hs, they're getting $177,000 versus we're talking about $12,000 per unit.
Well, that's the whole point. If you're going to go through 201H with LIHTC and all these other financing mechanisms, why are you not doing it that way too with Bill 7? In cutting the overall cost to a particular unit. That's why I'm not going to argue, but I'm just saying there was an intent by the former council members that we try to address workforce housing, etc. And I'll leave it at that, but I'll poll the members of the committee, okay?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, is there anyone else, Madam Clerk, in the council chambers who would like to testify?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Milatoga.
Hi, Chair, members of the committee, Pane Milatoga III, Operating Engineers, Local 3, Deputy Director of Politics. Just wanted to get our testimony on the record in support of Bill 3. We are also in support of taking away the 300 square foot minimum and allowing the market to decide. And so, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Milatoga? If not, okay, Madam Clerk, are there any in-person testifiers also further?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are now in discussion. If there is no further discussion, the chair at this time, yes, Councilmember Cordero.
Chair, so we're on Bill 3, right? I think so I was busy processing. I'm sure all the other council members were as well. I do want to thank all the testifiers for being here, and I want to thank you for your work on this. I do understand the balance that is needed to be stricken, but I do think that also we're such in a housing crisis that I do think, for me, I don't know if you were going to poll us, but I just wanted to jump the gun and state my position already and state that I wouldn't want to see the 300 square foot, I guess, requirement, or I guess what's proposed in the CD2. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Because the chair's thoughts on the CD2 in regards to the 300 square foot was basically looking at it from a microchip HUD formula. And if the council members are not interested in that and have the developer come up with their flexibility and then come back and ask you for the grant, post-grant, it doesn't make sense. And finally, I'm just looking at the quality of life for the tenants in the future. Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And I definitely acknowledge that. I think that the proposal is well-reasoned, and I think there's just a lot of different perspectives that are coming in terms of the discussion. And I don't necessarily have the exact solution today. I think I kind of stated my thoughts earlier, and I know that isn't necessarily even in line with everybody that's testified today. But, I do think whatever the outcome, our goal is to maximize the number of units, whether it's in this bill or this program or, the projects we review under 201H, given just the crisis that we're in. And I definitely respect Chair's position and think it's reasonable. And so, I'd be supporting your decision, but, at the end of the day, I think my policies, ideal policy would just be maximizing units with the expectation that whatever codes we have would ensure that all the housing we build is meeting habitability requirements and standard of, quality of life requirements. And I'm open to revisiting that if we don't think that's the case and need to look at the housing code or other codes to ensure what the exact number is. I don't think I've arrived at an exact number from the discussion we've had with housing DPP and, the testifiers on what would be, equal to a positive quality of life in terms of unit size. But yeah, appreciate the opportunity for discussion, Chair.
Okay, thank you. It's not the chair's recommendation to limit the number of units. It's just, can we afford what they are proposing within their own financial plan? If Bill 7 was not here today, what course of action would they take as a developer? Earlier, I stated in my testimony the rental housing fund, LIHTC, getting support from the state, dwelling unit revolving fund, housing. What? Yeah, okay. Councilmember DeSanto-Stan.
Thank you. I think the history of Bill 7 is really key, and I think you're right in looking at what our predecessors did. But I'd like to make another point that the whole reason why we established the Bill 7 program is that it's so difficult to build apartments as is right now. And I know later in this agenda we're going to be taking up some of the apartment zoning and apartment standards that are coming up. But before Bill 7, we were not producing very many apartment units at all. And this is one of the programs that's getting us there. It's and hopefully DPP can get us an answer on the number of units. But so far, it's only been a few hundred. There's probably several hundred in the pipeline. That's great. But I think I appreciate the concern about setting a precedent where we're encouraging micro units. But the reality is this program is self-limiting in that we're not going to have tens of thousands of these pop up all of a sudden. We have a $10 million cap in the program. We have, based on the applications that have come in so far, only a few hundred units. And so if we were to remove the 300 square foot threshold and just base it on units, at worst, we get a few hundred units. They might be small, but that's a few hundred units that chip into our housing shortage. Again, the program's self-limiting. We're not going to have tens of thousands of tiny little units pop up. This is only a few hundred at most a year, and of those, I think the market's going to decide, what's feasible on a certain lot or not. And so I think that the concerns about limiting the program in a way to disincentivize micro units is probably not necessary based on the fact, again, that there's only $10 million in the pool. So far, there's only been a few hundred applications, period. Of those, several dozen, maybe at most, are of these small unit sizes. And I think the market's going to figure it out. So I agree with Councilmember Cordero that the sort of arbitrary threshold's probably not needed right now. And if at a later date we have this proliferation of tiny units, we can revisit it. But right now we have this money, we have a housing crisis. Let's put it to work and let's get this done. So that would be my position in agreement with Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you very much. Your point is very much well taken. Our chair of the Planning Committee, your thoughts, Councilmember Kia-Aina. Esther, please.
Thank you. I'm listening to all of the conversations, and I'm torn because, quite frankly, we've been discussing these measures for a long, long time, and it needs to get to the finish line. So while I understand what those have testified have said, as well as my colleagues, I still believe that you are trying to strike that balance, as well as the Office of Housing. If the Office of Housing, which is the administration, came before us today to articulate similar sentiments, I think I would tell you to strike it, but they did not, and they actually support your CD. So I support your I support your CD too.
Okay, members, any other thoughts? Chair Waters, please.
Thank you so much. This discussion has been really helpful. I agree with Vice Chair Kia-Aina that we need to get Bill 3 done. I completely understand what you're doing. Basically, you're saying that we want units at least 300 square foot, and it's an incentive. The developer is saying raise it to $40. Just splitting the baby, would you consider a friendly amendment raising it to $20 per square foot if it's under? That comes out to approximately half of what they're requesting rather than a third. But just a thought. But either way, I'm not a voting member of this committee, but happy to support you because I get what you're doing.
See, Chair and members, the thought for me is simply put, I think, is Director Apuna here? No, she's not here. She was here. Okay, that's okay. No, my point to all of us this morning is that I apologize to all of you because I did not get a status report of all project applications that were submitted to the council, let's say the past 5 years. These projects that were adopted by our predecessors. But these projects are not moving. And the reason why it's not moving is because of the overall economic climate, plus when we all went through COVID, et cetera. You folks are all part of the gang when we extended the 1500 Kapilani, making the excuse that it was financing again. If the role of the city is to be a partner in development of a housing, that's great. But for me personally, what is the margin of profitability for that developer? That he or she may be getting it from the grant program that we have, which is Bill 7. That's the exercise I'm going through right now. So at this point in time, the chair would like to recommend that we postpone decision-making till next month. Okay? Okay? Is that okay? Huh? What's that? I don't.
Chair,
Yes,
what's your
yes.
reasoning for postponing?
Reason is that, I think the committee is, it's in a tie. It's going to be maybe 3-2, and I don't want to expose you folks because we had,
Our vote's
Vice
our
Chair.
vote, Chair.
Huh?
Our vote is our vote.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not sure
Okay. Okay.
if we're waiting on anything
If
else.
the committee wants to push it out, I'll be happy to. But yeah, okay. The chair at this time will have recommend that Bill 3 of 2024, Committee Draft 2, be reported out for pass. Okay. The chair recommends that Bill 3 of 2024, Committee Draft 1, be amended to the Committee Draft 2, posted on the agenda identified as OCS 2024-0613. Any discussion which we have, any objections which we have? Objections, two objections. Okay. Council Tyler DeSantos Tam and Councilmember Radian Cordero. Okay. Hearing none, the bill has been amended to the CD2. The chair then recommends that Bill 3, 2024 CD2 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Any objections? Councilmember DeSantos Tam, objections? No?
No, I'm fine moving it out.
Okay. Councilmember Cordero, okay. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda number 5, Bill 31. This bill relates to pre-construction financing for affordable rental housing. Members, we have listed to the agenda 2 proposed committee draft versions of the bill, one submitted by Councilmember Kia Aina and the one that I submitted for your information. Summaries of the amendments are listed on the agenda. I will defer to Councilmember Kia Aina to explain her CD1.
Thank you, Chair. I believe my amendment doesn't limit it to the, wait, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. It removes the Affordable Housing Fund and gives greater flexibility on how we're able to fund this program.
Okay.
I just thought it was constraining because we're going to be competing with other projects that seek funding from the Affordable Housing Fund. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did everyone get Councilmember Kiaina's amendment? Yes, Councilmember Cordero. Okay, Councilmember DeSantos Tam.
Thank you. I received. I also know that you submitted a proposed CD1, and I wanted to make sure that if yours does the same thing.
No. Huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so let me go over my CD1, members, our CD1. Throughout the bill, it replaces pre-construction financing with pre-construction subsidy, or to clarify the funding is not a loan. Change the source of funding for pre-construction subsidies to the general fund instead of the Affordable Housing Fund. That's Councilmember Kiainos. And clarify that the maximum aggregate 10 million in funding is for both post-construction grants and pre-construction subsidies. Provide that of the amount of funds appropriated for the pre-construction subsidies and post-construction grants in each fiscal year's executive operating budget and program, no more than 50% of the monies appropriated may be used for pre-construction subsidies. Does everyone understand that? Okay. Provide that no more than 5% of the monies designated for pre-construction subsidies in any fiscal year may be used for administrative purposes, primarily to implement the subsidy program. Number 5, provide that for 2 different subsidy amounts for affordable rental units that are less than 500 square feet in size, the grant amount is $35 per square foot of dwelling unit floor area, and for affordable rental units that are 300 square foot or more in size, the subsidy amount is $25,000 per unit. For smaller units, the pre-construction subsidy increase to 35 from the post-construction grant of 15 per square foot was proportional to the pre-construction subsidy increase to 25,000 from the post-construction grant of 12,000 per unit for larger units. And finally, members, the rationale for the 2 different pre-construction subsidy amounts based on unit size is similar to the explanation given for the post-construction grant amounts in Bill 3. Members, if this bill moves forward and is reported out of this committee, it is my intention that when it comes back to the committee after a public hearing and passing second reading at the council, I will propose a committee draft 2 version of the bill to make conforming amendments to the post-construction grant provisions to account for the addition of pre-construction subsidies from the same funding source. Okay. For example, to provide that the amount of funds appropriated for pre-construction subsidies and post-construction grants in each fiscal year's executive operating budget and program, no more than 50% of the monies appropriated may be used for post-construction subsidies. These conforming provisions are not included in Bill 3 at this time because pre-construction subsidies have not been established yet. And that is the recommendation of the chair. Okay? Any thoughts, please? So this particular bill is dealing with pre-construction, not post. Bill 3 was in the area of post. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Okay, at this time, we'll call upon Mr. Alex Beatty again, or
Thank you again, Committee Chair and Council Members Alex Beatty, DPP. Once again, we'll defer to the Executive Director of the Office of Housing to speak on this matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, any questions for Mr. Beatty? If not, let's move on to Denise Isera Matsubara, Director of Housing.
Aloha, good morning. Chair, members of the committee, Denise Seri Matsubara, Office of Housing Executive Director. We support the CD1. Again, we want to thank the zoning committee for providing yet another option to help subsidize and assist development of affordable rental housing. The proposed CD1 pre-construction subsidy amounts to more than double the amounts provided in the original grant incentive for this program. So this This new subsidy also makes it available regardless of the unit size. So in that respect, we support this bill, and again, another attempt to strike a good balance. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Any questions for the Director of Housing? Okay. If not, let's proceed on. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Great. Are there any in-person testifiers?
Yes, Chair, we have some standing by.
Okay, let's, oh, Mr. Minotoga, please. Or
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. Panamea Tonga, Political Deputy Director for Operating Engineers Local 3. You received written testimony in support of Bill 31 from my boss. I just wanted to be here in person to testify in support of Bill 31. Thank you.
okay. Any questions for Mr. Minotoga? If not, Mr. Lam, please.
I'm in complete support of Bill 31 and hope to move more projects towards prevailing wage as well. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, members? If not, at this point in time, the chair would like to recommend. Oops. Oh, Ms. Young? Yes.
Aloha, City Council. Angela Melody Young, testifying in strong favor of this proposal. So a good policy, again, looks to the benefit of the interest of others and to accomplish mutual goals. And so during this process, I was thinking to myself, okay, let's stop and think about, do we have enough low-income housing in the entire state of Hawaii? Is there too much luxury housing? And my concern, I think, is what kind of development and developers is the proposal encouraging with this funding for pre and post construction? Again, a special perspective and responsibility of the funding parameters for the pre-construction is that the council is setting the limit and the qualifications and requirements during the policy-making process. So is it fair to only encourage low-income housing? And I think typically low-income housing, such as public housing, requires government subsidizing. And or is it fair to encourage more luxury housing? So I think those are thoughts to consider. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Young. Any questions for Ms. Young? If not, are there any further testifiers in person?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions at this point in time? If not, members, the chair would like to go once over the amendments so that you folks are all aware of it. Throughout the committee draft 1, please remember that we are replacing pre-construction financing with pre-construction subsidy to clarify that the funding is not a loan. And we're changing the source of funding at the request of Council Member Kiaina for the pre-construction subsidies to the general fund instead of the Affordable Housing Fund. And to clarify that the maximum aggregate 10 million in funding is for both post-construction grants and pre-construction subsidies. 3, provide that of the amount of funds appropriated for pre-construction subsidies and post-construction grants in each fiscal year's executive operating budget and program, no more than 50% of the monies appropriated may be used for pre-construction subsidies. 4, we provided that for no more than 5% of the monies designated for pre-construction subsidies in any fiscal year may be used for administrative purposes with the respective department, Budget and Fiscal Services, or DPP, or the Office of Housing, primarily to implement the subsidy program. And 5, we provide for 2 different subsidy amounts. For the affordable rental units that are less than 300 square foot in size, The grant amount is $35 per square foot of dwelling unit floor area. And for affordable rental units that are 300 square foot or more in size, the subsidy amount is $25,000 per unit. For smaller units, the pre-construction subsidy increased to $35 from the post-construction grant of $15 a square foot, which was proportional to the pre-construction subsidy increase to $25,000 from the post-construction grant of $12,000 per unit for large units. Okay, so that's the rationale and the amendments that we are proposing. Any questions, members? Tyler? Yes, Councilmember DeSantos Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I think you heard my position on Bill 3, but I think the reality is that this pre-construction program is going to be very valuable. I think that the proposed changes that you have in your CD1 make a lot of sense in terms of changing the source of the funding and making sure that we're able to implement this program. I support the idea that we should conform this bill when it comes back to committee to Bill 3. So I think all of that makes sense. Again, we had an extensive discussion about the 300 square foot limit in Bill 3. I think even though the committee split, I don't want to stand in the way of getting this moved forward. So I have no objections to moving it forward out of committee today.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair. I stand in alignment with your Vice Chair, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. If not, let's move on at this point in time. The chair, okay, I already stated for the record what the amendments are. So at this point in time, for the committee draft 1 proposal, we did incorporate the amendments of Councilmember Kiaino's committee draft 1 proposal, which changed the source of funds for pre-construction subsidies to the general fund. The chair then recommends that Bill 31, 2024 be amended to the committee draft 1 that I had proposed, which was posted on the agenda and identified as OCS 2024-0612. If there are any discussion, objections, or reservations, hearing none, the bill has been amended to a committee draft 1. The chair then recommends that Bill 31, 2024 committee draft 1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you very much, members. Let's move on to agenda number 6. Members, this item is for discussion only and is Resolution 24-148. This resolution proposes an amendment to Chapter 21, Revised Ordinance of Honolulu of 2021, the Land Use Ordinance, relating to the development standards for the apartment and apartment mixed-use districts. At this point in time, may I defer to Councilmember DeSantos Tam for the explanation.
Thank you, Chair. This is a proposal that would amend the development standards within our apartment and apartment mixed-use zones. This proposal will not change the zoning on any particular parcel, but it would change what's allowed on our existing apartment zones. If you go back to our primary urban center development plan, which we're going to be looking at in Councilmember Kiaina's committee, in that proposal, they discuss how things like minimum lot sizes, things like setbacks, things like floor area ratio, and potentially things like height are things that we ought to look at. And so this is a vehicle to get there. In the 2004 Primary Urban Center Development Plan on page B7, it goes through actually and makes recommendations that we should be looking at all of these things. Lot coverage, setbacks, floor area ratio, minimum parking requirements, and height. And all of these things add together, and this is why it's been so difficult to produce apartment units. This is frankly why we need the Bill 7 program in the first place, because it's so difficult to build an apartment as is without all of the waivers that Bill 7 provides. So, I'm hoping that this sparks a discussion on our end. We send it to the Planning Commission, it comes back to us, where we can start to, unlock our apartment zones where there's infrastructure, where there's parking, so we can create some housing that local people can afford.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point in time, may we call upon the department, Ms. Dina Wong, the Planning Division Chief. Oh, Alex.
Just real quick, Alex Beatty with DPP. I'm in the Land Use Permits Division, so in part we administer the land use ordinance, and we'll be ultimately working on this request if it's adopted. So I just wanted to real quick say thank you for introducing this bill, and wanted to remind the council members that DPP and Land Use Permits Division are kind of in the middle of a pretty long update to the land use ordinance. And this item, along with the development standards for all of the other zoning districts, is something that we had intended and continue to intend to address in a future phase, probably about 2 years from now. We absolutely recognize the importance of this issue and understand why it's been introduced now. However, we do want to just, I think for us working on this sort of out of order for the larger project that we're working on, we would really appreciate some direction. Right now the draft bill proposes to strike, but then leaves blanks in for minimum lot size and proposed floor area ratio. So I just kind of want to kick that back in and direct the council members to some of the plans that we have available that were referenced already, looking at those really closely and considering how those recommendations, which usually aren't quite so specific, might translate into a hard number of floor area ratio. Looking at our other policies like TOD, where we are looking to increase density around certain rail stations, but we're doing that as an incentive, so there's a potential for universal increase to FAR, potentially undercutting some of those policies. There's just a lot to consider. A change like this wouldn't happen in a vacuum. And the other item I wanted to point out is the infrastructure. Yes, these areas are zoned and therefore anticipated to have a higher density, but elevating that minimum density is going to require then a reconsideration from all of our infrastructure partners, DDC and Board of Water Supply and Environmental Services, to reevaluate the infrastructure that was put in with the expectation of a maximum floor area ratio. So again, I think generally we're supportive of considering this, and I personally am very much looking forward to the conversation. This is planning nerddom, and I'm pretty happy about that. But we just want to make sure that it's well considered, and providing DPP with a backboard by having some numbers in here would give us something to play off of a little bit more. To that end, Dina Wong is here to talk about all that goes into the plans, the general plan, the development plans, and the sustainable communities plans. And she can talk a little bit more about just how holistic those plans are and the amount of work that goes into looking at infrastructure, doing public outreach, and preparing those recommendations. So I'll pass the mic over to Dina now, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Wong.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Say, Chair Waters, and members of the council. I'm Dina Wong. I'm the Planning Division Chief for DPP. And with me today is Franz Krantz and Noel Cole from our Planning Division, and they can help to answer more specific questions. Alex kind of touched upon what I wanted to say, and I just want to mention a few things that I think the council should consider as you put forth numbers in amending the development standards. The first one, which is mentioned already in the resolution and Alex touched upon, is to just recognize that the land use ordinance, which this resolution is proposing to amend, is probably the most important tool that we have to implement our long-range plans. That would be the general plan, and we have 8 development plans and sustainable community plans. Probably the most important is to look at the Oahu General Plan. There's a section on population that talks about the city's directed growth policy, and it sets benchmarks or targets or markers for population in each of the areas for the year 2040. So we need to make sure we keep that in mind as we go forth in making amendments. The DPs and SCPs, throughout them, they also mention broader policies or guidelines on density in terms of maybe number of stories or units per acre. So that should be something that's looked at. And more broadly, the plans, you know, through their vision, they describe the type of community that people want to see and where they want, you know, the type of place they want to live. And that's obtained through, as Alex mentioned, we do extensive outreach with community groups and advisory groups, et cetera. The second thing that the council should consider, as Alex mentioned, is our TOD planning, which has been in the works for a number of years. And I think Tim Streitz is here, and he could probably add more to that. But the intent is to focus growth in the rail corridor, and we do that by allowing projects to have greater density and greater height in exchange for community benefits. So if we were to increase density across the board, we could potentially dilute that incentive and have development pop up a little further away from where we want it to be. And we would also forego perhaps the community benefits, of which the biggest one to date has been affordable units. We should also, in considering these amendments, think about sea level rise and impacts from climate change. There are some communities with apartment zoning that are prone to flooding and shallow groundwater. So we need to think about, do we want to really increase density in those areas without having companion mitigative measures to address those impacts. We should really take a deep dive into the data and to look to see what has actually been built in the past decade or so under the current development standards. And from that, you know, draw upon the conclusions we can make, whether it's the small lot sizes that's being a hindrance to developing fully those areas. And then I would encourage the council to take a look at DPP's data, and we publish annually an annual report on the status of land use on Oahu. The most recent one is for fiscal year 22, and that's on our website. And it talks about the short-term housing need, and actually between 2020 and 2027, we show a shortage of about 10,500 affordable units, but a surplus of the market units. So you may want to take a look at what our data is showing. And also I just wanted to bring up that increasing the density across the board may not equate to more affordable housing units. You may get more units, but perhaps not where the need is the greatest. Alex mentioned working with our infrastructure agencies to know where limitations are and to know that DPP provides our long-range forecast to the agency so they can plan ahead where capacity needs to be expanded. Lastly, as Alex mentioned, if DPP were to initiate this, we would be doing it under our overall plan for the LUO amendments. We would have a consultant on board, and we would be able to do extensive outreach, meeting with the community, the neighborhood boards. I would guess doing focus groups, perhaps with developers and community organizations, but with a resolution and the time frame allotted, that may be something we would not have time to do. So I just wanted to bring up those few points about what can be thought about as you put numbers into that resolution. So we have staff here from Planning Division, TOD, and Alex's group to answer questions you folks may have. Okay, thank you.
Members, any questions for DPP? Chair Waters.
Thank you. Basically, what I understand you saying is that we must be careful before amending the apartment and mixed-use districts development standards, right?
Yes, I think it's measured and pragmatic would be the way to move forward.
And I can't speak for the introducers, but it looks like they blanked it out with the idea that you folks come back with recommendations. And I understand what Ms. Wong just testified, that before you do that, you want to take a deep dive, hire consultants, do outreach and focus groups, but can you take a shot at it yourselves with all the experience that you all have at DPP? And I get it. You want to take your time and do it right. But at the same time, that could be years. So we're turning it over to you. And again, I'll defer to the introducers, but really the idea is let's roll our sleeves up, burn the midnight oil, and figure this out.
And we understand that. I think we would appreciate from the policymakers some direction on what you believe your constituents might be comfortable with, or you see a lot of projects come through here, and although maybe you don't have the same experience that we have touching floor area ratio as a data point, certainly the 201Hs, that's something that always gets talked about here. The monster home regulation talked about it. So the council has experience with it, and I would hope that can provide us just that initial guidance of like, here's where we are at the moment, so that we have something to play off of.
I see. In our previous discussions concerning the primary urban core development plan, what was proposed by DPP is increasing density. Yeah, in areas that otherwise weren't. I'm talking about Kapahulu as just an idea. But yet, at the same time, DPP has denied permits to folks on Wailea Avenue, saying that there's not enough flow capacity. So, I hear what you're saying, that we have to be careful in doing this, but at the same time, you're recommending increased density, but yet, as you mentioned, there isn't the ability to do it. So why are you recommending increasing density when we don't have the ability to accommodate this density?
That's a great question, and the plans serve many other regulations. They don't just inform the land use ordinance and SMA permits. They also help to inform the PIM maps, the public infrastructure maps. So the idea would be the plan recommends increasing density in these areas. The environmental services might see that and say, oh, okay, well, we need to provide some higher sewer capacity in this location. And then that means that there needs to be a new wastewater treatment facility that then gets put on the map, later built. And then it's a slow, but like I said, measured process. So one of the earlier steps, though, is making those kinds of recommendations in the plan.
No, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your points, and I take it to heart. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from, Councilmember DeSanto Stam, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to have an info briefing discussion on this. I have a number of questions for DPP. Some of them are going to be sharp. I hope they don't take it as an elbow, but I hope that they take it as an opportunity for reflection. Right now, in our residential zones, because of our monster home ordinances, we can't go past 0.7 FAR. Currently, in our apartment zone, A1 and A2, on a similarly sized lot in my district on Lusitana Street, we have an A1 apartment zone parcel. The allowable FAR under the current formula is 0.52. You can build a larger monster home in a residential area than you can build on an A1 apartment zone. Is this good policy?
Not the policy, that is the regulation, though, for sure. The residential neighborhood, the development standards are from a bygone time where laissez-faire attitude about how much and how big. The idea that a ordinary family would want to build an ordinary home that they could maintain on their own. Floor area ratio wasn't much of an issue when these development standards were established. Lot size or lot coverage and building height were the things that we really looked at. The FAR is new, and I welcome that kind of analysis for residential. And certainly your point is well taken about certain lots are, because of the way that FAR is calculated, certain lots are going to have maximum floor area ratio that's less than the residential district.
So to the point about, these regulations being outdated, I note that in the 2004 PUC plan, that's 20 years ago, and actually in its draft from 1999, it starts talking about the need to make these changes. I heard in DPP's testimony that it takes a while, you need a consultant, you want to do it right, you need to talk with the other agencies. We've had 25 years since this came up in the 1999 plan, and I'm sure it came up in documents before. When are we actually going to do this?
Well, phase 4 of the land use ordinance update, I believe, is expected to start next year. So that was the time that we had allotted to do it. If this draft bill is adopted, then we will be doing some of that work just on the apartment district during the 270 days that follow.
Okay. I guess my frustration is I'm sure our predecessors who sat here in 1999 and 2004 heard the same thing, and they read the same reports that said we need to update these things. And they all said, okay, well, DPP will take you at your word. I think what we have here is a message from us that, like, we want this to change soon, and we want to unlock housing in areas where it's already apartment zone, where it makes sense to build apartments. Something that was mentioned earlier was the PIM maps and the need to do adequate planning. I understand and appreciate that. When was the last time that our PIM maps for the primary urban center were comprehensively looked at?
That is a great question that I'm not able to answer. I'm going to ask Dina.
And the secondary question, and I've talked with Don Apuna about this, is why are there things on the PIM map like the Hotel Street subway and the King Street subway and the acquisition of 600 Kapiolani Boulevard, which the Anderson administration in the 1980s shut down? Why is this still on the map? And this gets to, I think, a bigger question: why aren't we updating these things on a regular basis, including our zoning? Sorry if these are all like rhetorical questions, but I want to make it clear that this is something that I feel strongly we need to do, and I'm glad Councilmember Kiaina co-signed this resolution.
Understood. Regarding the PIM map, I'll allow Division Chief Dina Wong to talk about that.
So the public infrastructure maps, we do amendments to them to put on symbols, and they're more, it's part of the budget process. As you know, you need to put the symbol on the map before you encumber money for land acquisition or construction. There are symbols, as you mentioned, on the maps that are very old and should likely be taken off. So DPP, and we probably need to do this on a more frequent basis, is to request from the agencies. We defer to them whether they want to remove the symbol or not. Some of them are so old they should probably be removed, but other times agencies may want to keep the symbol on because they anticipate doing further expansion or modifications. And if they keep the symbol on, they don't need to go through the whole resolution process again. So that's a good point. We should look more closely at taking off symbols that are not needed so the maps are cleaner and really reflect projects that are coming up.
And then one last question. This is an overall holistic question. So in the, we talk about the general plan, the PUC plan, the area development plans. In the current PUC plan, it talks about different types of neighborhoods: town neighborhood low, town neighborhood medium, near town corridor. It describes the kind of neighborhoods, as was mentioned, that people want to see and people want to live in. What are the types of zoning categories, A1, A2, A3, AMX, that would match with these? And how can we get that zoning to match the vision?
Okay, so this is a new concept in the updated PUCDP, looking at these place types. And I'm going to ask Noelle if she could maybe expand more on the relationship between the zoning and the different place types.
And while Noelle's coming up here, I imagine there's probably areas that are described as town neighborhood medium, a certain number of stories where it's just the zoning doesn't make sense.
Hi, I'm Noelle Cole, DPP Planning Division. So the place types came about in the charter. The place or the land use maps are not meant to be one-to-one with the zoning maps. They are meant to be at a higher level, and then the zoning is what brings it into implementation. So when we began working on these plans, we were trying to account for a lot of new planning that had been done since the 2004 plan with the TOD areas. And there are a lot more mixed-use areas. And so we decided to move towards these place types. So we're looking more at form and intensity, whether it's residential or commercial. It's sort of divided along those lines. And so each of the place types will give a little bit more flexibility in interpretation. So we have a table I can share with you that shows what they most closely correspond to. So maybe the lowest intensity only corresponds to our lowest residential intensity, but most of the other place types can correspond to 2 or more of our zoning areas. And so it's more context driven. So what is around that development? Are there any other mitigating, is it in a special district? Are there view corridors? So it's sort of a case-by-case basis as zone changes come in. But you're right, if we were to fully implement the plan, there are some of the place types where it would make sense to make some tweaks to the existing zoning. So in terms of, height, setback, that sort of thing. But they are meant to not be one-to-one with the zoning.
Thank you. I guess, this might be a piece of homework for DPP. We have described in the plan things like town neighborhood medium, 2 to 6 stories, residential, grocery store on the bottom, kind of a bodega thing on the bottom, whatever it is. And yet, in these areas where it's A1 or A2 and we have 8,000 square foot lots where you can get to 0.52 FAR, could we work at it backwards and say, if we want to get 2 to 6 story apartment buildings, a mix of them, not a uniform wall of 6-story buildings, what would it take? What FAR would it take to get there? What setbacks would it take to get to a vision where there's not, as the 2004 plan, or maybe it's 2024 plan, mentions, there's wasted space between buildings that, serve no purpose. And maybe by taking that approach, we can get some information from DPP, just some ballpark numbers, and we can send it to the Planning Commission to further refine.
Alex Beatty with DPP again. Thank you for that line of questioning. And I think just to provide some FAR context, since this is for discussion and informational, if you don't mind, the projects that we saw today had a FAR of 4.3. The previous version of that 201H project in Waipahu had an FAR of 5.5. The 5,000 square foot lots that were being discussed earlier related to Chapter 32 affordable walk-up projects. So I just did some quick phone napkin math. I'm guessing that the FAR on those is about 1.5 if he's providing 25 approximately 300 square foot units on a 5,000 square foot lot. So that's a FAR of 1.5. The way that floor area ratio interacts with height is kind of interesting. These apartment districts have minimum or maximum building areas in 40, 50, 60%. So for ease of discussion, we'll take the middle 50%. So you could cover half of your lot with a building. And then as a floor area ratio, if that was all floor area, that would be a floor area ratio or FAR of 0.5. So each floor, if it was exclusively dedicated to floor area, would be 0.5. So with no height setbacks and no weirdness because of the lot shape or because it's a flag lot or something like that, a 6-story building with 0 parking provided would be an FAR of 3 in a 50% building area situation. Now, typically, we're seeing those ground floors dedicated almost exclusively to parking. So you could take away probably 2 floors of that ground floor. So that would be FAR of 2, down from 3. But I'm just kind of painting a picture, things to think about. Moving elsewhere on the island away from these smaller lots. In the Ala Moana TOD area, there have been a handful of high-rise projects that the City Council has approved. The Sky Ala Moana project, which is one building of Ke'eaumoku and Kapiolani Boulevard, has a floor area ratio of 10. So it's 400 square feet and has a FAR of 10. The project that is currently under construction a little bit further up Ke'eaumoku, called The Park, between Rycroft and Elm, has a floor area ratio of 7. These are really large lots, and they're building quite high. So the building form is a lot different than on a smaller lot, where they wouldn't be able to build so high just because of the shape and the ability to have the structural components necessary to hold something up like that. For the new monster home residential regulations, the FAR of 0.6 up to 0.7 as an absolute max. Previously, it would have been possible to have an FAR of 1 on a residential lot. One of the distinctions between residential and apartment is what is being regulated. In residential, the principal regulation is on number of dwelling units. In apartment, we do not regulate the number of dwelling units. So while an FAR of 0.5 may produce less floor area than an FAR of 0.7 in the residential district, the number of dwelling units that could be provided is going to be wholly dependent on building code and access to utilities. There are also a lot of great tools for visualizing floor area ratio online, so you can get a sense of, some of it is certainly provided in the new PUCDP, but there are definitely other ways to look at it. And there's been a lot of study on so-called like missing middle housing and what kind of density that might produce. So I would encourage you to look into those topics as well. Yeah.
Thank you. I have maybe one more question then. You're right, the Ernest Street project is 1.55 FAR, and if you look at all the other Bill 7 projects that submitted applications through December of 2023, for which we could do some calculations, the average FAR for a Bill 7 project, at least in that data set, is 2.39. Now, those Bill 7 projects are allowed to do more things because they have some affordability requirements, but I think the underlying zoning, needs to be changed. And I guess I don't know why it is that for that Ernest Street project, if it weren't for Bill 7, they would be limited to a 0.88 FAR in an A2 zone. Like, why? Can you shed some light as to why these FAR numbers in apartment zones are so low and so restrictive?
I can't speak to the rational basis for those numbers. They were developed out of a much more complicated system that previously existed called the CZC, Comprehensive Zoning Code. This table already looks a little complicated, and I'm excited to simplify it, but that table woof, it was pages long and had many columns to consider for how much floor area you could develop and how much open space needed to be provided. So I believe that what we have currently was just a rational simplification of that to bring us to where we are. It's also important to point out that many lots don't get developed up to maximum density for reasons that aren't related to zoning. Financing might be something, the desire of ownership to not maximize their lot. There are still a surprising number of single-family dwellings in the apartment districts in town, and then we're seeing single-family dwellings being developed in the apartment districts in brand new subdivisions. It's a product that the market wishes to have in spite of zoning allowing significantly more. So yeah, I just want to make that point also.
Thank you very much. Any further questions for Mr. Beatty? Bell? Radiant? No? Chair Waters? Okay. Alex, thank you very much. Yeah. If there is no further discussion, at this point in time, there being no further business. What? Oh, Denise.
You still have to do testimony.
Oh, we have to do testimony. Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. Is there any in-person testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, we are in discussion. If there is no further discussion, I would like to say thank you very much to the Department of Planning and Permitting, all of the staff who is here for your insights and your input. And our journey just began with the new first deputy director here, learning what we're going through. So there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.